Ludwig van Beethoven was one of the greatest composers who ever lived. His music is powerful, beautiful, and full of emotion. But behind the magnificent symphonies was a man who lived a life of great personal struggle. He suffered from terrible health problems for most of his adult life. When he died on March 26, 1827, at the age of 56, many people were left wondering about the true cause of his long illness and eventual death. For nearly 200 years, doctors and historians have debated what made him so sick. His story is a medical mystery that has fascinated generations. We know he suffered from constant stomach pain and most famously a slow and painful loss of his hearing. Beethoven himself wanted the world to understand his suffering. In 1802, long before his death, he wrote a famous letter to his brothers. This letter is now known as the Heiligenstadt Testament. In it, he described his deep despair over his growing deafness. He felt isolated and misunderstood. He asked that after he died, his doctors would describe his illness to the public so that people could finally comprehend what he went through. He hoped this would help the world to forgive his sometimes difficult and withdrawn behavior. This heartfelt request from the composer himself has inspired modern scientists to take up the challenge and finally answer the questions he left behind. Today, we have amazing technology that Beethoven could never have imagined. Scientists can now study DNA, the tiny instruction manual found inside every living cell. This genetic material can tell us a lot about a person, from their hair color to their risk for certain diseases. Luckily for researchers, it was a common practice in Beethoven's time to keep locks of hair as mementos of loved ones. Friends and admirers snipped clippings of his hair before and after his death. These small pieces of history, preserved for centuries, held the potential to unlock the secrets that were hidden inside his body. They were a direct link to the composer. So, a team of international researchers decided to use these precious locks of hair to fulfill Beethoven's wish. Their goal was to sequence his entire genome, which is the complete set of his DNA. By studying his genes, they hoped to find a clear medical reason for his debilitating conditions. They wanted to know if his deafness was caused by a genetic problem. They also wanted to investigate the source of his chronic gastrointestinal issues. Finally, they aimed to determine the exact cause of his death, putting an end to centuries of speculation and bringing us closer to the man behind the legendary music. The first step for the research team was a very important one. They had to make sure the hair they were testing actually belonged to Beethoven. Over the years, many locks claimed to be from the composer's head have been sold and passed down. Not all of them are real. The scientists collected 8 different locks from public and private collections in Europe and the United States. They then began a careful process of authentication. They used historical records, including notes from the people who originally collected the hair, to trace the journey of each lock through time. This historical detective work was crucial to ensure their scientific results would be accurate and trustworthy. After establishing the history of the hair samples, the scientists moved on to the genetic analysis. This was a very delicate task. DNA can break down over 200 years, so the researchers had to use special methods to piece the fragments back together. They managed to extract usable DNA from 5 of the 8 locks. They found that the DNA from these 5 samples all matched each other perfectly, belonging to a single European man. This gave them strong confidence that they had found authentic strands of Beethoven's hair. One famous lock, however, failed the test. The Hiller lock, which was once used for a study suggesting Beethoven died of lead poisoning, was found to have come from a woman. With the authentic DNA secured, the team began the complex process of sequencing Beethoven's genome. They carefully read the genetic code contained within the hair strands. This process allows scientists to look for specific genetic markers linked to different diseases. For example, they can search for genes known to cause hearing loss or genes that increase a person's risk for liver problems. It is like having a biological map of the composer's body. The researchers compared Beethoven's genetic map to thousands of others to see what made his unique. This was an incredible opportunity to look back in time and diagnose a patient who had been dead for nearly 2 centuries. The work was slow and meticulous. The team had to be extremely careful not to contaminate the ancient samples with modern DNA. They worked in ultra-clean laboratories and used advanced computational tools to reconstruct the composer's genetic information from the tiny, damaged fragments they had extracted. The result was the most complete genetic profile of Ludwig van Beethoven ever created. This scientific achievement opened a new window into his life. It allowed the researchers to finally test the many theories about his health that had been proposed over the years, using the most direct evidence possible, his own biological code. The results of the DNA analysis provided some clear answers, but also some big surprises. The first major discovery related to Beethoven's death. The genetic data showed that the composer had a very high genetic risk for liver disease. It also revealed that he had been infected with the hepatitis B virus, likely for many months leading up to his final illness. We know from historical accounts that Beethoven drank a significant amount of alcohol, especially in his later years. The combination of these three factors, a genetic predisposition, a serious viral infection, and heavy alcohol consumption, created a perfect storm that led to severe liver failure, which was the ultimate cause of his death. However, when it came to his most famous ailments, the DNA did not provide the simple answers everyone was hoping for. The researchers scoured his genome for any known genetic variants linked to hearing loss. They found none. This suggests that his deafness was probably not inherited or caused by a single faulty gene. Similarly, they could not find a clear genetic explanation for his terrible gastrointestinal problems. This means that these conditions were likely caused by other factors which are not written in our DNA. The exact causes of his deafness and stomach issues remain a puzzle, showing the limits of what genetics can tell us. The study also settled a long-standing debate about lead poisoning. In 2007, a study on the Hiller lock of hair suggested that Beethoven had been exposed to high levels of lead, which might have caused his health problems. But this new, more comprehensive research proved that the Hiller lock did not belong to Beethoven at all. It came from an unknown woman. When the authenticated locks were tested, they showed only normal, insignificant levels of lead. This finding officially debunks the lead poisoning theory, redirecting the focus back to the complex combination of genetic and environmental factors that truly shaped his health and led to his death. Perhaps the most astonishing discovery had nothing to do with Beethoven's health. The scientists compared the Y chromosome from Beethoven's hair to the Y chromosomes of living relatives in Belgium who share the same paternal ancestor. The Y chromosome is passed down directly from father to son. To their surprise, the Y chromosomes did not match. This meant that somewhere in the 7 generations of his father's family line, there had been what scientists call an extra-pair paternity event. In simple terms, a child was born from an affair. We do not know if it was Beethoven's grandmother, great-grandmother, or an even earlier ancestor who had a child with someone other than her husband. While this groundbreaking research has answered some of the biggest questions about Beethoven, it has also left us with new ones. We now know that a hepatitis B infection, combined with alcohol and genetic risk, led to his fatal liver disease. But we still do not know how he contracted the virus. Hepatitis B can be spread in several ways, and it is impossible to know exactly how Beethoven was exposed to it more than 200 years ago. This part of his medical story remains shrouded in the past, a detail lost to time that even our most advanced science cannot recover. The answer to his final illness is clear, but the journey to it is not. The greatest mystery of all, the cause of his progressive hearing loss, remains unsolved. His deafness began in his late 20s and profoundly shaped his life and his music. It was the source of his deepest personal pain, yet the DNA analysis found no genetic cause. This leaves open the possibility of environmental factors or perhaps an autoimmune disease, where the body's own immune system attacks healthy tissue. Did he suffer from a long-term low-grade illness that slowly damaged the delicate nerves in his ears? Without a definitive genetic clue, the true reason he lost the sense so vital to his art continues to be one of history's most compelling medical enigmas. Similarly, the source of his lifelong, agonizing stomach problems is still unknown. Beethoven complained constantly of cramps, diarrhea, and pain, which made his life miserable. The genetic tests did not point to conditions like celiac disease or inflammatory bowel disease. This suggests, like his deafness, that the cause was not genetic or was caused by genes we have not yet discovered. These unanswered questions remind us that while DNA holds a treasure trove of information, it does not tell the whole story of a person's life. Health is a complex interplay between our genes, our environment, and pure chance. The final mystery is a personal one, stemming from the surprising discovery in his family tree. The break in his paternal lineage raises fascinating questions about his ancestry. We may never know in which generation this event occurred, or who Beethoven's true biological ancestor was on his father's side. This finding adds an unexpected twist to his biography, a secret hidden in his genes for centuries. In the end, Beethoven remains a figure of immense genius and profound mystery. Science has brought us closer to understanding his suffering, but the great composer, like his timeless music, still holds some of its deepest secrets.